Good morning, everyone. Today we will be studying Python, basics of Python. Python is a very simple programming language. It is high level language. It includes all the features of object oriented languages, but it is easy to code. It is freely available. Also, it is an object oriented language like C++. It is interpreted language. We use interpreter for all the codes of the Python. Then it is portable. Code written on one device can also be used on another device. It is dynamically typed. We need not to declare the integers again every time we use them. And next is Python indentation. Python indentation is the most important function, is the most important concept when we write a code in Python, because indentation refers to the spaces at the beginning of a code line that we give. In other programming languages, indentation is only for readability, but in Python, indentation is very, very important. If we are not following indentation rules, then the program will not work. For example, let's say we have used if else statement. What is if else statement? If else statement says that if the following condition is true, then do this, otherwise this. So let's say here I have used the condition if 7 greater than 5 and then colon. This colon will denote that this entire statement comes under this condition, that if 7 is greater than 5, only then it will be printed. Otherwise, this printf will be printed because it is not an else statement, it is only an if statement. So as we know that 7 is greater than 5, so the output should be 7 is greater than 5 and then a, print a. But let's say I write a number 4 which is not greater than 5, then only a will be printed. So also if I am not following this indentation tab here, then I'll get unexpected intended block, because this colon shows that there is some programming block. So we have to take care of indentation concept. Next is Python variables. Variables are created when we assign some value to them. They are dynamic. We can change the value assigned to a variable, but variable stores the values. For example, as I said, this language is dynamically typed. So when I assign 3 to x, then this x will automatically think that this 3 will realize that 3 is an integer, and this 3 will be assigned to this x, and then is print the type of x as okay, print type. Now what is type function? Type function is a function that tells about the type of that particular variable, that what kind of data that variable is storing. So next is name equals to John. So here John is a string. So when we wrote that print type name, then type of John is string. So it will print the class str because it belongs to class of the strings. Then is marks 75.5, where it means that the number is float. So the type will be class float. Everything is declared inside the class. Next is assigning multiple values. For example, x comma y comma z equals to Toyota, Hyundai and Jaguar. At the same time, I can assign all three values to these three variables, because in Python we have this feature with us of declaring multiple variables at the same times. Just to show you, I had written print x, where x value will be Toyota, and then Hyundai will be assigned to y, and Jaguar will be assigned to z. Yes, and then important concept in Python is comments. Comments are used to explain the Python code. They are used to make the code more readable. Prevention, it can be used to make more readable code, that it's easy to understand. Also, while testing code, it helps us to understand for that we have written the code for which purpose. Comment should start with a hash, else it will not be considered as a comment. And if it is beginning with the hash or triple colon, then the Python will just ignore that statement and consider it as comment. For example, c is equal to 5 plus 7. So we write print c, and then this is an example of single line comment. What I was going to tell you is that there are two kind of comments which are used in Python. Basically, this is hash, which is used for single line comment. This is also comment that this is a code which adds two numbers. For example, this is C is consisting of sum of 5 and 7, and print C, this is code. But then this 3 colon sign beginning and ending at this point, it is multi-line comment because both these lines are considered as comment when they are when they are within these 3 columns. For example, if I remove this from here, this will not be considered as a comment because this hash is a single line comment. Only anything written in this line will be considered as comment, but not in the next line. But in case of 3 double colons, anything written between these 2 colons will be considered as a comment. So it is a multi-line comment. Then again, if c equals to 5, print c. So this is code thing. Next is taking input in Python. How do we take input in Python? So first thing is, if you need to take string as an input, then we have to use the function input like this. This is the function for taking string as an input. Also, if you want to write some string, you can write it like in between the input function in double colons. That will be considered as a string. So next, if you need to take integer as an input, what we will be doing is we'll be typecasting the string to integer. Like the function will be integer, and then within the integer the input. Okay. By default, input functions take string as an input. For example, enter your name is written here, as you can see, which is the string, which was the string in the input function. So let's say my name is Karthika. And next is enter marks in maths, which is 85. So yeah, this will be considered as an input. Next is output formatting. How do we format the output? Here, as you can see, that I had stored this Kartika into name keyword because I had taken input in the name keyword. So here we have written print name. This will be a variable, considered as variable. Anything which is written inside single colon or double colon is considered as a string, like comma. These entire will be considered as a string. So the output is Kartika studies data science. This way, when we can write, also the other way is to write the entire line in double colons and to place the curly brackets, and in those brackets we will be using this function which is dot format name. Dot format, and any variable can be given. Here we have given the variable name to this format function. So at the place of curly braces, the name variable will be replaced, which is Kartika studies data science. Okay. Next is casting. As I also discussed earlier, casting is to specify the data type of a variable. Like if I want that x should store string 3, then what I can do is I can typecast the integer 3 with string class, that is str, and pass 3 to that class, that is str bracket start 3 close. Then when we'll be printing the type of x, we will know that the type is str. And if I want 3 to be an integer, then I can typecast it with integer. If I want 3 to be a float, then I can typecast it with float variable. And then is print z, and the type of z. What is z? Z is consisting of float variable, so it will be 3.0. First of all, typecast of x. First print statement, it was print type of x. So we have typecast 3 to string, so the type of x will be string, so the output is class string. And next statement print is print z, since z was typecasting 3 to float class. So the floating numbers, as you know, are decimal numbers, so the float number will be 3.0. Next is type of z, which is class float. Okay, so similarly, as I said, that to get the type of any number, we need to use the type function. We need to use type function. So for x, the type function here is x is assigned 5. Since it is dynamically typed language, so x will understand that the 5 is an integer, so my class has to be integer. Also, y will typecast dynamically know that John is a string, so my type of variable y is string here. We had discussed this type function. We had used this type function earlier also, but yes. Next is Python numbers. Python numbers are 3 types in Python. Numbers are of 3 types in Python, like integer, float, and complex numbers. Mainly used they are. So for example, I can say that y equals to 1 is also an integer. Integer can be a smaller number, integer can be a bigger number, integer can be signed, can be unsigned. That is, it can be positive number, it can be a negative number. So all these 3 are integer. The type is class integer. And any number with point, that is decimal, is an float. Even if you write 1.0, it is a float. 1.10, it is a float number. Even if it is 1.123, this is a float number. Z, here Z I take a negative. Float number can be negative, float number can be positive. But only condition, it has to be decimal number. Next is complex numbers. Complex numbers are written in the form of 3 plus 5i. As we know, it consists of real number, it consists of an imaginary part. So the real part here is 3, and imaginary part, as guys have studied in maths, imaginary part is 5i. So as here we can use the, as you guys know that in complex numbers, the main thing is the fact that real part can be missing, but imaginary part has to be there. That means 5i or 5j, whatever, it has to be there. For example, y equals to 5j. In this case, it is complex, but if I write this, it will be an integer. So that means for a number to be complex, it can consist both real and imaginary